The Boeing Company has had a predestined relationship with China from the very beginning. Chinese-born Wang Zu, a Massachusetts Institute of Technology graduate, was Boeing's first trained aeronautical engineer and designed its first mass-produced product. In 1928, Boeing's co-founder George Conrad Westervelt went to Shanghai to found the first commercial air service in China. Since the Chinese Communist Party came to power, every Chinese leader since Deng Xiaoping has visited Boeing in Washington state, while Boeing remains China's most committed lobbyist in Washington. But now, China is launching its own civilian jet to compete with Boeing. What lesson can we learn from Boeing's affinity with China? Hi everyone, welcome to Lei's Real Talk. I'm Lei. When President Richard Nixon made his historic visit to China in 1972, whose plane he would fly in was the subject of negotiation. The U.S. insisted that American presidents use only American planes when making foreign visits. The Chinese argued that the Chinese host could not fly in an American plane to accompany guests when visiting Chinese territory. So the U.S. compromised. The two sides agreed that Nixon would arrive in his Boeing 707 Air Force One, but fly in a Chinese plane when visiting other cities in China. The Chinese regime was certainly impressed by Nixon's plane and subsequently ordered 10 Boeing 707s. Nixon personally approved the sales, making China the only communist country except Yugoslavia to have U.S. jetliners in its civilian fleet. The New York Times editorial board reacted to the sales at the time and argued, "The Chinese are entitled to buy products of advanced American technology even when these products could have ancillary military significance." From day one, Beijing hasn't been shy about its ambition to build a Chinese Boeing. In May 1980, while visiting a Shanghai factory, a group of U.S. industry representatives discovered the Chinese Yuntan, a 178-seat virtual clone of the 707 that the Chinese bought in 1972. The project eventually failed, but this didn't prevent Boeing from being the most committed lobbyist in Washington for China's most favored nation status and the accession to WTO. China's accession to the World Trade Organization catalyzed an extraordinary shift in the aviation industry. The number of Chinese air passengers rose from 62 million in 2000 to more than 500 million in 2017. China's global share of air passengers increased from 4% to 14% over the same period, while the U.S. share dropped from 40% to 21%. Meanwhile, Boeing's China market revenue grew tenfold, from 1.2 billion in 1993 to 12 billion in 2017, or from 5.7% to 21% of Boeing's total revenue from commercial planes. Beijing, however, has used the Chinese market as leverage to take Boeing hostage in its competition with Airbus during the ups and downs of Sino-US relations. During the 1995 to 1996 Taiwan Strait crisis, when the tension with the US was high, Beijing bought 60 Airbus aircraft. When the relations warmed up between 1997 and 98, China bought 60 Boeings. In 2015, while Xi Jinping was visiting Boeing, he announced that China would buy 300 new Boeing planes. But after the U.S. China trade war started in 2017, the CCP received nearly 600 aircraft from Airbus instead. And Boeing has not announced any sales to a Chinese passenger airline since November 2017. Around the time of 2017, China accounted for more than 20% of Boeing's global deliveries. But since 2020, the percentage has dropped to below 5%. But wait, this isn't Boeing's biggest nightmare. There's more. In 2006, the Chinese regime officially announced the plan to build its own commercial jetliner, and this goal has been included in the 5-year plan ever since. During the global financial crisis of 2008, Beijing created the Commercial Aircraft Corporation of China, or COMAC, a Shanghai-based state-owned aviation manufacturer, to make the C919. C919 is the aircraft that's set to compete against the Airbus A320 and the Boeing 737. Although it's part of the Made in China 2025 campaign, the C919 isn't all made in China. Of the 8 major components of the plane, only the wings and tail are Chinese-made. Of the other 6 components, 4 are from American companies, 1 is from Germany, and 1 is jointly made by France and the United States. The CCP knows better than anyone that the C919 would be impossible without Western technology. The regime has deployed hacking and espionage. In October 2019, the U.S. cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike released a report revealing the CCP's espionage activities related to the C919. A team of hackers led by the CCP's Ministry of State Security conducted a multi-year systematic attack on the foreign suppliers of the C919 to acquire trade secrets and intellectual property. Between 2010 and 2015, the CCP's online theft team, known as the Turbine Panda, hacked U.S. companies MTech, Honeywell, Capstone, and GE, the French aerospace firm Safran, and other suppliers. In 2016, after nearly 6 years of relentless hacking, the Aero Engine Corporation of China launched the CJ1000AX engine for the C919, replacing the aircraft's foreign-made engine. This Chinese engine has many similarities to the engines produced by CFM International, an aviation engine manufacturer jointly owned by GE and Safran. Meanwhile, in 2015, U.S. health insurance giant Anthem and the U.S. Office of Personnel Management were hacked. While investigating these 2 cases, the U.S. authorities uncovered the hacking and espionage linked to the Chinese airliner. In August 2017, Yu Pingan, a hacker in the Turbine Panda team, was arrested in Los Angeles while attending a security conference. After that, Beijing banned Chinese researchers from attending security conferences overseas. In April 2017, Xu Yanjun, an official with the Jiangsu Provincial State Security Bureau, responsible for recruiting spies working at foreign suppliers, was arrested in Belgium and extradited to the United States. In September of that year, Ji Chaoqun, a Chinese citizen in the United States working for Xu, was indicted for recruiting engineers and scientists in the U.S. I made a video about their crimes. It's called Chinese Industrial Espionage. In August 2018, Zheng Xiaoqing, a GE engineer, was arrested and accused of stealing the company's aeroturbine technology and leaking it to China. In October that year, the U.S. Department of Justice indicted 10 Chinese nationals. These individuals are accused of stealing U.S. aviation technology. Experts believe that the hacking and espionage activities are still ongoing because the C919 has not met the expectations of the Chinese government. It was originally planned that the plane would take its maiden flight in 2014, but COMAC has run into technical obstacles and postponed it to 2015 and then to 2017. According to Chinese media, the C919 has received at least 815 orders from 23 companies worldwide, of which only 2 were international orders, and both were cancelled because the companies went bankrupt. The company said it will start deliver the aircraft in 2022, but the plane has yet to be certified by Chinese aviation regulators, and the certification process is also delayed. After China Eastern Airlines recently crashed one of its Boeing 737 in southern China, the airline grounded 223 Boeing 737-800 aircraft. In Chinese social media, some voices immediately appeared. Let's go with C919s and stop all Boeings. China Eastern Airlines is the first airline that has turned a letter of intent into a firm order of 5 C919 aircraft. 20 years ago, in 2002, to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Nixon's visit to China, a Boeing publication featured an article with a quote from Larry Dickinson, Boeing's senior vice president of sales. There's an old Chinese saying that says, "When you drink from the well, never forget who helped you dig the well." We helped the Chinese aviation industry dig the well, and our Chinese friends will continue to remember. In the same article, Boeing Chairman and CEO Phil Condit said, "Having China as part of the world trade system, operating on the same basic rule set, moving their economy to be in concurrence with that rule set, and developing a rule of law are all major attributes of their ability to be part of a robust world." That has been the wish for the world for the past 40 years. But we've had too many lessons to know that as long as the CCP is in power, this wish is a fantasy, a dream. And if we don't get rid of that fantasy, we'll be killing the future of our American companies. With the aging and declining population, a struggling economy, and competition from the auto and railroad industries, the growth potential of the Chinese aviation industry isn't as promising as Boeing has predicted. Systemic corruption will erode the morale of the Chinese aviation workforce and public confidence. Ultimately, Boeing should stop allowing itself to be held hostage by the Chinese market. The company needs to wake up and focus its product and innovation on staying ahead of the competition. I think with that, success will be an inevitable byproduct. That's all for today. Here's the video about Chinese industrial espionage, and the other one is about the Eastern Airlines recent crash. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.